When one of us is tired out, the other one will hold it down. We're gonna spread the love, we're gonna spread it around. We're all over the city now, and way down in the underground. Come on! To fight the system, to fight the system. It's a good day. It's a I woke up feeling great. The birds are in the trees. They're singing me a melody. La 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 la, fuck the police. My head is on straight. My heart is in peace. My soul is incredibly ready to change history. It's a good day to fight the system. To fight the system. It's a good day. It's a good day. We're never gonna stop. We're gonna make it count. When one of us is tired out, the other one will hold it down. We're gonna spread the love. We're gonna spread it around. We're all over the city now, and way down in the underground. Come on!
Hi, everyone. My name is Kate. I'm the organizing director of Be Seattle, and I am joined by my lovely co-director, Tanya Moore, who is our operations director, who's going to be helping us with the tech tonight. Welcome. This is our May Building Tenant Power Workshop, Empowering Seattle Youths. I'm going to start us off with a land acknowledgement. We are on the land of the Coast Salish peoples. I would like to recognize that we are occupying the traditional land of the first people of Seattle, the Duwamish people, past and present, and honor with gratitude the land itself and the Duwamish tribe. As we do this important work on these lands, we understand that our collective liberation cannot happen without Indigenous sovereignty. We encourage each of you to sign the petition for federal recognition of the Duwamish tribe. And if you're able, visit the Longhouse and pay rent to the Duwamish. You can learn more from Real Rent Duwamish. We'll include a link for them in the resource guide that we'll email out after the presentation, and we'll drop a copy here in the chat. Our resource guide also contains contact information for the Renting in Seattle helpline, the Seattle Department of Construction and Inspections, also known as SDCI. They're responsible for enforcing landlord-tenant laws, the Seattle Office for Civil Rights, as well as a bunch of other organizations that provide services to renters. And we encourage each of you to get more involved with Be Seattle. We're seeking table volunteers, folks to hang flyers, people interested in developing their skills as part of a tenant leadership team. We host 2 renter council meetings every month. The Elder Renter Council, which centers renters age 55 plus, and the Seattle Renter Organizing Council, also known as SROC. These councils were created for renters to work together to strategize and fight for renter protections that they feel are important to their communities, give and receive peer-to-peer support for folks organizing in their buildings, grow renter power, and build community. We'll drop links for the sign up for the email lists in the chat. And then I'm going to hand it off to Tanya to share some upcoming events, and then we'll jump into it.
All right, good evening, everyone. So Wednesday, June 4th from 1 to 3:45 p.m. online via Zoom, Solid Ground presents Rent Smart, Looking for Housing. Join Solid Ground tenant counselors to discuss housing search basics, focusing on where to search for housing, tenant screening information, best tips for finding a rental, tax credit housing, holding deposits when applying, overcoming rental barriers such as criminal history and past evictions. On Wednesday, June 12th, from 3 to 4:45 p.m., online via Zoom, Solid Ground presents Rent Smart, What to Look For as a Senior Renter. Are you a senior renter looking to know your rights as a tenant? Join them to learn information on fees, deposits, dealing with maintenance requests, factoring safety and community into your housing search, and information on evictions in senior housing. Thursday, June 13th from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. at El Centro de la Raza in room 311, the Roberto Maestas Digital Literacy Lab, or online via Zoom, is the Seattle Renter Organizing Council meeting. Join us for the next meeting on how you can show up for the renters of Seattle. Come help us advocate, organize, and educate. On Tuesday, June 18th, from 6:30 to 9 p.m. at Made Space Seattle, the Bus Bash 2024 Summer Rager invites you to have a good time for a good cause. This annual celebration will raise financial support for the Washington Bus Education Fund, a 501c3, and welcome this year's Summer Fellowship cohort, which consists of 12 BIPOC, queer, and trans, disabled, immigrant, and working class young people from across Washington state who will be spending 10 weeks learning the skills they need to participate and lead in the civic process. Come and meet the 2024 class of fellows, hear about the fellowship program and what it will entail for this summer, and celebrate the 11th annual Bus Bash. Thursday, June 20th from 5 to 9, Creative Justice is hosting a youth-driven Juneteenth celebration at Washington Hall, 153 14th Ave, Seattle, Washington, 98122. There will be food, music vendors, and so many incredible partners and artists that they will announce all of them over the next few weeks. Wednesday, June 26th, 6 to 8 p.m. online via Zoom, Be Seattle's June Building Tenant Power Workshop, Pride in Housing Justice. Do you have landlord issues? Do you feel like you're not being heard by your property manager because of your gender identity or sexual orientation? Are you worried that requesting a repair or an adjustment to your rental agreement will create retaliation, you are not alone. Join B Seattle and guest speakers for education, community conversation, and resources about your rights as a queer renter in Seattle. And now it's back to Kate.
Did we miss a slide?
No, it for some reason the date
Oh,
didn't
I
get
think you need to
changed.
go out and refresh. But while Tanya is gonna do that real quick, because I added a slide last minute. I just want to welcome everyone, and before I introduce you to our speakers, I just want to like be really clear in that you know, I build this as we've got a group of experts coming today to try to teach you, but revolutions are almost always led by young people. So to be clear, there are young people out making changes right now. So it'll just take a sec for Tanya to bring up the slide, but I wanted to show you just some of the like images from the past. Didn't there it is, and present. So you might recognize some of these images or some of these folks, but this is like an ongoing thing. And the picture up in the top of the 4 women who are sitting on the ground in front of, I believe that this was Seattle City Council in 1964. The youngest person there, the smallest person there was only 11 years old, occupying City Hall. Like, this is really, really incredible. Young people have a vision for the future and are not as jaded as those of us who have been in that position where the world, like, you can see the injustices and you're ready to fight them. Like, you've got this. So we're gonna give you some like context of like how we got into this housing crisis that many young people were born into, that they haven't like lived in any other world that wasn't in crisis. And then we want to also talk to you. So after our 3 incredible speakers, we have space for community discussion where you can like share your concerns and your ideas, and tell us what you need from people who've been in this work for a while, what we can do to support you, because like, you're gonna lead. The housing justice movement is going to be young people. As we've seen through the civil rights movement, as we're seeing right now happening with the like the Free Palestine movement, like, it's always going to be young people. So welcome. Thank you for being here. And with that, I would like to introduce our first guest speaker, and that would be David Moser. David has worked on the front lines of the housing crisis for 20 years in Seattle and King County, currently managing Housing First programs for Lutheran Community Services Northwest, providing the human right to housing for homeless families and immigrant, refugee, and asylee households across the state. He is a senior adjunct faculty in the School of Social Work at Seattle U, where he teaches about housing and homelessness policy advocacy. He has worked to build Tenant Power as a legislative district lead for the Washington State Low Income Housing Alliance and other organizations. Go ahead, David. I made you co-host so you can share your slides. I'm going to mute.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kate. It is really wonderful to be here. Really nice turnout for a beautiful spring evening in Seattle to get people into a Zoom room. It is pretty impressive. So really happy to be here sharing space with you all. Some folks that I have been fans of for a short time and long time, and just honored to be here and to share a little bit about my experience and just some of the work that I have done. And I am also struggling with a little bit of a sickness that I'm getting over, and so I'm gonna be talking a little bit shorter than I think I was originally planning, which is great because we also have Jasmine and Julissa here as well to be sharing this time. So I do not want to be occupying too much of the space at the beginning. But the way that I wanted to start this today, I think by way of introduction, that was good. That was good from Kate. I think that was sufficient. I'm just going to start with a question. If I could get a show of hands of the people in the room. First question, who here is interested in living in Seattle ongoing for either a short time or a part-time in the future of their lives? Is yes. And yes, pretty much everybody here. Whether you want to move away and have a chance to come back, if you're pretty sure that you want to put down roots here, this is that it's one of the reasons that I think that we're all here today. And then the second follow-up question, who here is worried that may be hard to do, given what's happening with housing and housing rents in Seattle going forward over the next 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, what have you? Yes. And so with those questions, now I'm going to share my screen. And that's what we're going to be talking about. So the two primary reasons that I want to focus on for why housing is so expensive in Seattle, and I think this may be like there's a lot of different ages and ranges of experience in this room. I'm definitely this was a great exercise for me having I'm trying to keep this under 15 minutes tonight. Usually when I teach classes I teach a class called The Politics of Homelessness at Seattle U. I have 3 hours every week to talk about whatever I want. God bless my students.
Hey,
So
David,
yes,
can you like zoom in on your slide or put it in presentation mode? Because we can
100%,
see like a bunch of slides.
100%, please. Yes.
Thank you.
There we go. Thanks, Kate. So the two primary reasons that I focus on for why housing is so expensive in Seattle, which is my guiding question. Another way of framing that would be, why is it so hard to build affordable housing in Seattle? And the number one reason really is that there isn't enough of it. There is pretty abundant data at this point to show that the housing scarcity crisis, the fact that a lot of people want to live in Seattle and other growing cities where there are a lot of jobs and opportunities and fun and other things, that there's just not enough housing to go around. I think that there's been a pretty significant shift in the perspective in the last few years, really around understanding scarcity as if not the driving cause of rising rents and housing instability, as at least a primary cause across the political spectrum. So we know that there isn't enough housing. The number two reason that I'll focus on is that you can't simultaneously make housing a good investment for the people who already own it and affordable for the people who don't. And unfortunately, we have had over 100 years of housing policy in every city, in every state at the federal level, designed to make housing a good investment for the people who already own it, as opposed to affordable for the people that don't. And it's just kind of a physical impossibility. And I could talk for many hours for each of those reasons. And now I have a rambunctious dog. Ollie? Okay, we'll see if I can deal with that. So the number one reason, there's a lot of reasons why there isn't enough housing in Seattle. One of the most pertinent reasons right now is because of what we might call the Seattle apartment ban. That over 70% of the land in the city of Seattle, it is currently illegal to build an apartment building on, or much of any housing that isn't a single family home. This is the basic illustration of this that I kind of find the most clear. Lots of people in this room have probably seen this before. I'm sure some haven't. It takes more time than I have here today to really unpack this, but I do think it is visually striking if you focus on the yellow. If you focus on the yellow on the map on the right, all that yellow stuff is places where it is illegal to build an apartment building in Seattle. And we all know that if you're looking for housing, if you're out on the interwebs, are you and you're not a millionaire or a billionaire, are you looking for a house or are you looking for an apartment or something in between? All of that yellow land, the only thing that's there is a house. Single family homes. There have been some recent changes. There's some recent tweaks. But we aren't really allowed to build anything close to affordable housing on the vast amount of land. On the left, you can see just the pie chart. 75% of the land is single family zoning. These are contested numbers. Some of them are old. It gets the basic picture across. The point that I want to get across, though, is that how would you feel if I told you that the vast majority of elected officials in Seattle, in King County, in the state legislature, and in the federal government are working every day not to make this better, not to make this easier so that young people and renters will have more renter options, more affordable housing options, but to do the opposite. They are working every single day to solidify these exact policies that are continuing this housing crisis. Democrats, Republicans, it doesn't matter which party. On housing issues, they're often very much the same. And with the changes that have been happening in Seattle, we know that there's a lot of talking out of both sides of our mouths happening. People saying, I care about affordable housing, I care about rents, I care about homelessness, while they are actively every single day solidifying this exact policy regime that's creating it in the first place. That's the kind of anger that I've been feeling around it lately, especially. And so that's actually where I'm gonna, I think, leave off with this right now. I think maybe we'll have time to come back and I can talk a little bit more about, just for a minute, about the social housing and the I-135 social housing campaign and the Complete Communities Coalition that is happening around the comprehensive plan to change some of these policies, that I just want to make sure people have that information. And then depending on how we're doing on time, we can talk more about that. How does that sound? That feels like a lot of talking for me to begin. So I'll stop sharing my slide. I don't know if we want to do questions now or if we want to wait until we've all presented. Either way is fine with me.
Yeah,
I think
we're
we should
ahead
let
of
other people
schedule,
talk.
but before we move on to our next speaker, does anyone have any questions for David pertaining to what he just shared, or have something that they want to share before we move to our next speaker?
I want to share, thank you, David, first and foremost. And second, I want to share that this is like super important information that I don't think like our young people or young organizers have knowledge of or access to. And I would love to see how we can bridge this information with the young people, especially like in our advocacy program where young people are really passionate about working in policy. I mean, not in Seattle, but in Burien with like the ban on like camping and basically against homelessness. And I think that this information will just be really good in informing them on how to show up in city councils and when they are giving public testimony. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm happy to talk more. Nice to see you, Julissa.
Thank you. Likewise. And I love lectures. So
And for folks who love lectures, David actually had so much to cover on like how we got into this housing crisis. Like he did a really like broad overview of like the racist zoning, but like we can go into a lot more detail. And we will, because David is going to come back in August to do a more in-depth workshop, but we just wanted to give a broad overview. And Jade, I just saw your hand pop up.
You just answered my question. So thank you.
Oh, awesome.
I'm glad to hear that he's coming back. Thanks.
Okay. How do I remove the spotlight from David? Sorry. I put it on and now I can't take it off.
Maybe I could remove it myself.
Oh, there we go.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Okay, well, thank you, David. And yes, there will be
Yeah.
time to talk about social housing and initiative 137, initiative 135 for social housing. It already passed. The voters wanted it. We want social housing. So now initiative 137 is trying to get progressive revenue to fund it. So we will talk more about that towards the end of the workshop.
We have like 1 week to get like 20,000 more signatures or something. So we need as many people down at Folk Life collecting signatures this weekend as possible. Thanks.
Yeah. Talking to y'all, come collect signatures. And with that, our next speaker is Julissa Sanchez, she, her, ella. Julissa is a fierce advocate for human rights and women's empowerment with a background in Latin American studies and human rights from the University of Washington. Originally from Los Angeles, Julissa is Chicana and Sinaloense. Oh my God, I said this earlier. I had to practice. I have a really thick American accent. I'm sorry. Sinaloense. Did I get that? I had Julissa record it for me.
yeah.
Her roots shape her work as an activist and community organizer. She spent 5 years at the Tenants Union of Washington State, developing a language justice program to support Latina tenants during the COVID-19 pandemic. Since January 2023, she has served as the Director of Advocacy at Choose 180, focusing on transformative intersectional youth justice and policy reform. In June 2023, she was appointed by the Seattle City Council to the Seattle Renters Commission. Julissa is also a published writer and is currently working on her first novel. When she's not working in the community or on her writing, Julissa is dedicated to mothering the revolution and nurturing intergenerational healing with her 15-year-old son. Thank you all for putting up with my American accent. And now I'm going to pass the mic to Julissa. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. Now you gotta put up with my Mexican accent. But thank you everybody for being here. I am so excited to see so many beautiful faces, familiar and new ones, and also your names on the screen. That works too. Thank you for turning on your cameras. I appreciate that. And thank you, Kate, for such a beautiful introduction. She was really fundamental in putting that together because she could do it way better than I could. But I'm here to speak to you guys about where young people are at right now, especially within housing injustice and housing justice, and what the most fundamental things to a human is housing, is where they stay, it's where they're safe, is where they can recover their your energies, where you go and recover from being too social. If you're an introvert, is where you come home and you heal your mental health, your overall health. And it's where you come and cook, is where you come and rest, is where you come and shower, is where you have your clothes, is where you, it's supposed to be a place, a sanctuary. Your home is supposed to be a sanctuary. And when we talk about housing justice, all too often the narrative of young people is left out of these conversations, even though young people are so affected when their families, when their parents are gentrified, displaced, when they become homeless and are couch surfing. And that is directly like linked to young people being caught up in the system. So when we talk about transformative justice, it's intersectional with housing justice, and we need to be amplifying the voices and the experiences of young people. And I'm excited to continue to work with Be Seattle and other organizations to center the experiences of young people within the housing injustices and the policies. And, you know, young people depend on adults to provide housing for them, especially if they're under 18. They can't go out and rent on their own. And they also, young people depend on us investing in their parents, investing in their stability and their foundation. When we invest in our adults, we're also investing in our young people, because if a home is safe, and if an adult is supported and is able to work one job and make enough money to pay the rent, then they're able to provide that loving and safe environment for their young people, and also connect to their young people. Whereas a lot of the stories that we hear from young people is that they want a safe home, that they want mental health services, and that they want a loving community and a loving parent. And in order for a loving parent to be home, they need to have a job that pays well enough for them to be present. Also, we need to invest in the mental health of holistically of the family, so young people don't have to feel the need to run away from their homes. And when they do not feel safe, and unfortunately they're not at a home that is safe because there is abuse in any kind of way, we need to be able to have housing to support young people that are running away from a home that is violent. And there isn't enough shelters out here, and landlords will not rent to young people. And how are we going to support young people that need us to co-sign for them? What organization out here is co-signing for young people? We need to have those conversations, and we need to create those spaces for young people. You know, the school to prison pipeline starts at home, you know, and it starts where there's a lack of resources, or a lack of home, or a lack of a safe home. And that's where I am focusing on with my advocacy efforts at Choose 180, is to look at what the intergenerational healing looks like, and the intergenerational support starting in the home. And I'm looking forward to creating those partnerships with other organizations that work with adults and their parents. So we focus on the young people, but we also need to know that when we're focusing on the young people and we're bringing the young people to our programs, we also know that we're returning them to an environment that may not be safe for them. So we also need to heal the parents and then heal the community. And in that, we need to invest in the community, which takes me to that we need to have young people at the table when we're talking about budgets, when we're talking about the programs that they need, when we're talking about the resources that they need. And I am so excited to talk about this cool partnership that I'm working on with Tammy Morales' office, which I did want to talk to y'all about, which the meeting is on the 29th. And I can send out more information to Kate, and then Kate can just send it to y'all if you're interested, and you can connect with us about it. But basically what we want is key stakeholders within young people's lives to then bring young people to plan this engagement for young people to come and talk about the policies and the budgets and do young people, I mean, I'm kind of young still, but like I'm not like super young. So I don't know what's like hella cool out here. I mean, my son thinks I'm cool and young. So I mean, I guess, but the activities that young people nowadays like have for them, like we would love to hear like what's fun for them and what's engaging for them. So excited to explore those possibilities. And as a community organizer, as Kate mentioned, I was once upon a time a really badass community organizer. And once a community organizer, always a community organizer. So I'm working on establishing a lot of community organizing within Choose 180, but more focused like on young people driving and pushing that community organizing so we can at that one, is it the Bite of Seattle, David, that you said? But events where we're able to have young people like tell reality check to adults and be like, yo, what you're voting on, what you're not voting on, what you're investing in, what you're talking about, like that's gonna affect me. So I'm gonna need you to like do this thing right. And young people, if you know young people, they are the truth and they will tell you the truth. So I'm excited to empower young people and give them the mic because they have a voice and they know their truths. And I'm excited to give that platform to our young people in advocacy and in other programs within Choose 180. And I think that's all I have for right now. Any questions? Something I may have forgotten?
Hi, I have a question. If we have a minute, this is Troy.
Hi, Troy.
Hi, and thanks for the presentation to both of you. I really appreciate it. My question is this: I'm an old man, like a really old man, and I'm in a situation right now. Kate knows about it, and others on this call, where it's a big challenge with my landlord, and really just finding the language and the energy and the wherewithal to engage and to be effective, even for me as an old man, is difficult. So I worry um, about young people and like help them actually about the skill levels that they actually possess in order to engage in a way that's going to help them reach well, to be tenacious as they go through what will be some challenges, and to also defend their rights and to achieve their desired outcomes. So what programs are in place to actually help younger people develop these types of skills? Or is there
Uh,
a gap in the programs that are available to actually help young people develop these types of skills?
I don't know a program at the top of my mind of like that is helping young people like develop these skills. I do know though that just like it's intergenerational healing, we can have an intergenerational community organizing. Therefore,
Mhm.
there is the elders who have their wisdom. There is the people who are um middle-aged or whatnot, and then
Mhm.
their expertise, and we can support and amplify the voices and needs of young people. And we have organizers that have done this for a long time, and we have the moral obligation to support and amplify the voices of young people.
Sure, 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 sure.
And we can also talk about how we're going to create this kind of program and this kind of support for young people so
Oh,
that they,
sure. Okay. Okay.
you
Okay.
know,
Because what I'm learning, just even with filing complaints and conducting the research that's associated with that and the different agencies and the different types of complaints, and maybe there are multiple complaints, and just the writing itself, and again writing in such a fashion that's going to capture the attention of the investigator and make sure that this investigation goes in the direction that it needs to go is again a skill that has taken me, 1,000 years to become a proficient at. I wouldn't even say excellent at, but just barely proficient. And so yeah, I'm definitely interested in opportunities to help develop programs that would teach young people these really valuable skills, because they're going to need them here in Seattle. They're definitely, because drama comes up that you have to you have to respond to. Like, I got a 3-day notice to quit on my door the other day. I mean, it's simply out of retaliation, and so I needed to respond very craftily to that in order to you know point out the facts, and this is the second one I received, and it's just and it's all retaliatory, and I know it. But normally I would be, if I were 22, I'd be scared to death. Closer to 100, I'm scared to death as well. But I would see how a young person would be very, intimidated by that, because it really is an intimidation tactic that's illegal. And I just am very interested in assuring that people younger than myself have the skills to actually fight these types of situations and win, and protect their rights, actually. Um,
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. We do have advocacy, youth and young adult advocacy program at Choose 180, where we do bring different organizations to talk about how to organize, how to do storytelling, how to and about different organizations. So
uh-huh.
I don't have the organization's name at the top of my
No worries, no worries, no worries.
but I am actually gonna write this down. Thank you for your question, but it's like, so basically like training for young people on how to like do a sustainable like movement, and also how to stand up for their rights.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And the skills that go along with that, like communication and writing, responding to, notices, or responding to intimidation, and just the skill of just sticking with it, and not giving up, because it's a long, laborious process. Things don't happen overnight, and how to seek out support, when they need it as well, and they're not in this by himself, because as Kate mentioned at the top of the call, it's really, we're counting on these young people to drive the movement for us. I'm ready to pass the baton, as soon as possible, but we got to make sure that they're skilled, and we don't want to make assumptions about the skill levels that they have in order to be successful. Some things are just really teachable and with practice, but I'm telling you, it's been tough for me, just again, as a business professional, to even engage and just go through these processes myself. So I can just about imagine how challenging it is for someone in their 20s. So I appreciate your looking into this and entertaining the conversation, the possibility. I think that great things will emerge from this discussion. Oh, great. I see that we've done trainings on some of these things. Oh, awesome. Awesome. Awesome.
Thank you. And I hope that you get the resources and the support that you need with that 3-day notice, because you don't
It's
have to
scary.
leave the house unless it's like court ordered. But anyways, I'm not a tenants union representative anymore. So
I'll just echo, thanks so much for sharing that, Troy. It's not easy stuff to share, and it's impossible for everyone dealing with these landlords. So thanks for the encouragement for folks checking out the resources. And there are some great resources. So
Excellent. Excellent.
And I see Jade has had a hand raised for a while.
hi, Jade.
Oh, good, thank you. As always, thank you, Kate and Tanya and the Be Seattle crew for hosting these, and thank you, David and Julissa. I have a couple questions. However, I just want to say, to piggyback off of what Troy was just mentioning, and what everyone else is saying in the chats and such, it's not that we don't there aren't workshops like this that exist. There's a lot of know your rights opportunities out there, especially from the tenants union and solid ground. What me personally, let me explain something. Hold on. I come from legal advocacy, landlord tenant background, in housing in King County. And what I have seen, both as someone who has worked in the system and as a community member, also engaging in these kind of workshops, is that unfortunately, a lot of these organizations, I'm not saying this is not a personal thing, it's just the truth, where the funding comes from, the funders put into their contracts, you know, what an organization can or cannot say, or what they can or cannot advocate about. And a lot of these truths, to what you were saying earlier, I really appreciate that you're saying like young people are not afraid to, you know, speak the truth and call out corruption, speak truth to power, XYZ. And so the kind of actual genuine, like authentic training that which Troy is actually alluding to, it doesn't exist right now. But I will say there are a lot of people who are working on that with regard to in the legal field. So how do I say this? We have so many amazing advocates and attorneys who work in housing, landlord, tenant law, and all of the intersections, and they are scattered at various organizations. And there is a movement right now to create what doesn't exist right now, outside of the bounds of these oppressive funders. And you know, I'll put my information in the chat if anybody's interested in trying to connect on that endeavor. I'm happy to give you more details, but it is kind of, it's in the earlier stages, and it is, you know, kind of high level confidential kind of moves that we're making right now. So I appreciate that other people are talking about this. This is a need that a lot of people have identified, and now there's enough people who have the balls to actually do it, to be real. So all of that said, with outside of rights, when we talk about policy, I'm trying to get the youth involved in these local measures, building the policy, and also monitoring contracts and policy. My question is, what is y'all's like maybe take or your you know, two cents or whatever on the King County Youth Action Board, and how do y'all engage with the Youth Action Board? Do y'all see that as a aid, etc.? I understand there's only like 40 people who can even be on the YAB, but how do y'all use that tool, if at all? And then my next question is there any kind of interest or engagement or understanding about the King County Continuum of Care? Because that is a huge tool that I feel like not a lot of community really is jumping on, and I fully have, and I'm in the running to become a board member hopefully next week. We'll see. But anyone can join the Continuum of Care, and it's I have a lot to say about it, but they're supposed to monitor funding contracts that the KCRHA and the city of San, this is a HUD mandated body, right? So even if, say, the KCRHA just went away tomorrow, the COC always stands. Okay, this is a federally mandated body that has oversight powers, not only when it comes to like contracts that are already in existence, but when it comes to emergency grant funding. And as we all know, a lot of these providers and housing authorities, XYZ, that get funding, you know, they abuse it, they abuse its clients, XYZ. So there needs to be more of this community oversight. And one of my goals, even if I don't get placed on the Continuum of Care board, just as a member, is to get more people, especially youth, into these rooms, into these meetings. Right now they only have like quarterly meetings. They could have more if they wanted to do their jobs better. But there's a lot of opportunity there. So I'm curious if you'll have explored that, or the YAB. The YAB used to be super involved. Now they're kind of not, for some many reasons. So yeah, that's my question.
Thank you. That was a really good mini lecture, and calling us in and questions. I really appreciate it. So I've been in my role for a little bit over a year now, and it's been a lot of envisioning, and then now it's like gathering the resources to create those visions into reality. So thank you for highlighting these two things. We are working, the advocacy department at Choose 180 is working and creating a youth council at Choose 180 so that they can be the ones that are informing us about like what is it that they need, how are we gonna get said thing that they need, and of course is housing, right? So then I would love to like contact the King County Action Board and the Continuum of Care and see like how, learn more about them, and then see how we can partner with them in which avenue. For me, like, you know, it's interesting you said about the funding stuff, because I just got done speaking with our lawyer about, based on our contract, what can or can we not do, right, with an advocacy. And not to reference the tenants union again, but at the tenants union, like, we would just go so hard with when it comes to like advocacy and lobbying and like getting things passed and getting things done. So I know that at Choose 180, like with the organizing and the lobbying for young people, I know that we can take it super far within, and not even getting into the restrictions with the IRS. And our contracts just says not to like lobby for a candidate, which we're not. So I'm trying not to cuss. Really hard trying not to cuss, but well, wait, Kate said that this is encouraged here. This is a safe space. So anyways, what I'm trying to say is that I am really trying to gather all the tools and sharpen it for the young people to actually like fuck shit up, because we need to like fuck shit up in order for it and shake things up, because like policies that are being passed and all that, like, they do not have young people's interest in mind, and young people are the future. So if they're not going to listen to us in you know, a good polite way or whatever, respectability politics and say all that stuff, they're going to listen to us some way. And if anybody knows my organizing of the tenants union, it was never respectable politics, que no sé qué. So I'm like, I'm ready to like empower our young people to use their voice in the most authentic way possible. And if somebody gets offended because they're speaking the truth, like, that's not on us, right? It's like, it's actually should be offensive that they're passing policies and budget cuts and stuff like that that do not support young people or their health, or actually what they're doing is that they're sending our young people to prisons where they are benefiting from modern day slavery. So then it's like, hello, obviously we're going to be loud and we're not going to be respectable when we go and advocate against this when you're not listening to us. So, and that was my lecture. No, but
Thank you so much. You just spoke some life into me. So thank you. I just want to say real quick that the everything you just said was correct. And it's because of this neoliberal, stronghold that exists in Seattle. And, the continuum of care is one, it's a band-aid, right? It's not the solution, but it is an opportunity not only to be engaged in the monitoring of contracts and learning the contracts and how the funding works, but hopefully it's also going to be a space where we do more community education around the specifics on the King County housing intricacies. And anyway, I'll put my information in the chat, but anyway, this is very exciting stuff. My brain's doing happy things right now. So
I mean,
thank you
I'm
so much.
always down to meet up and have coffee and talk about these things, because these things are important, and building community is important, and us being more organized and connected than the oppressor is important. So I'm hella down to have like conversations about this outside of this meeting, especially because I don't want to like take up too much time or space, and respect everybody else's time as well and the agenda. But yes, I thank you for those questions. Those are critical conversations that need to be had, and we need to also take up space within city councils and county councils. And I've yelled at the governor's mansion before about all these things. Like, we need to be shutting down places where it's like business as usual, where they're literally like fucking with people's livelihoods with the things that they are not doing or things that they are doing. And I would love to have young people there I'm a big fashionista, so I would love to have them there with like matching jackets and the big hoops and the berets and like taking up space fashionably and like speaking their truths and not allowing business as usual to happen, because while business as usual is happening, people are becoming homeless. Young people are becoming homeless. Young people are being affected by mental health things. Young people are being auto declined into adult prisons. Like young people are not getting the nourishment and the love that they need as young people so that they can thrive. And I'm interested in creating systems and places where young people don't only survive, but they thrive. And I am not afraid to speak truth to power. So definitely ready to organize. I mean, we can go right after this meeting and organize. But anyways, I'll pass it back to Kate. Thank you.
I want to say, hell yeah. I also like briefly want to touch on like the funding aspects. Because we're going to talk about that a little bit later. But I do want to say, Seattle isn't limited in our funding except for lobbying for candidates. We are a nonpartisan educational organization. But I think the larger your organization grows, the more limited you get by funding because of the types of grants that you have to apply for and things like that. And that's part of the reason that Seattle is still really small, that we haven't grown that much, because we want to stay authentic to the people that we are engaging with. But we will talk more about that later. A lot was happening in the chat, and I wanted to draw attention to a comment that Tanya made. That was one of the biggest issues, is that the city of Seattle does not treat HUD CDBG funds as an open process. They put them into the city budget instead of opening up the RFP process like they do in other cities and counties. That was my addition. And having a group of citizens decide who will get the HUD home funds and CDBG funds. So that does tie the hands of the continuum of care somewhat. So that's definitely an area where I think delving into more and discussing how we can change that. But with that, I want to move on to our next speaker, because I think that what she's going to talk about is going to really tie into this like larger conversation that we've been having. So please welcome Jasmine Smith. Jasmine, she, her, is a political hack / policy wonk who won't shut up about niche local and statewide politics, bikes, bus lanes, and building more housing. She is the political manager at the Washington Bus, vice chair to the Urbanist Election Committee, and has been serving on the Queen Anne Community Council as a board member and formerly transportation co-chair. And serves on the Uptown Land Use Review Committee. She's an ardent renter in Lower Queen Anne and e-bikes around town when she doesn't take the bus or train. Jasmine loves being an organizer and will relationally organize you into caring about things. Take it away, Jasmine.
Hi. Yeah. First, I have a couple slides. I don't know if it's easier to do this as kind of like a conversation, or for me to throw the slides up. I don't care either which way. Does anyone have like an accessibility need or whatnot where it would be better to have the slides up? Sweet, I'll just chat with you. So I think we had a really great segue into this whole conversation about youth advocacy and everyone getting involved, and how do we show up? How do we make our voices known where the decisions are being made? And so there's a couple different areas where that's happening. The first one that we always talk about, especially being in elections and advocacy and voter registration, is at the ballot box and whatnot. When we're talking about getting young people voting, then that's one of the ways, but it's only like a little way that people are showing up. And there's a lot of different nuance in that as well. So when elections are happening and whatnot, from the January to November election cycle that it seems to have stretched into. It's not just about that November 7th this year when the election day is, turning in your ballot at 7:59 and hopefully making a decision before then. But there's so much leading up to the election, and sometimes it is just like directly supporting ballot measures and the issue, like the specific issue, that specific thing that you care about, whether it's social housing or raising the wage or increasing zoning or whatnot. When it's directly on the ballot and you say, yes, I love that. Those will be through initiatives or charter amendments, and you'll have your say like right then and there. But then there's also how we're engaging with candidates and whatnot. And even before they start for about the issues that matter to them and talking to them about what matters to you, and if there's something that they haven't heard about that's impacting you, educating them. A lot of times candidates are running because they are really wanting to change like a couple issues that are like front of mind for them in their communities, but that doesn't mean that they don't care about other issues. A lot of times you have your sort of like things that you know a lot about and other things that you're like, yeah, I think I know the right answer, but I'm not really sure and I'd like to know more and whatnot. So when you're coming together with the people that want to represent you, letting them know how they can is one of the big ways that you can start changing the narrative before it even starts. And connecting with other voters about how they align, and connecting those dots that might not be on the literature that they're preparing, the talking points that are happening at forums, but like, hey, I talked to this candidate and they really care about making sure that the comprehensive plan is going in a direction that actually like has a great impact on our lives, and I care about this because and whatnot. And so reaching out to your community and having those conversations and filling in those little missing dots and whatnot. But altogether, just empowering the community to be educated and know how exactly to affect change. What does this ballot title mean, just as much as where does everyone, or at least what they're saying on the campaign trail, is where they're aligned and what their election could mean for us if they follow through on the commitments that they're making on the field. Then the other part of it is so now they've been elected. We have who we have as city council members, as the mayor, and they're doing what they're going to do and whatnot. And I think one of the biggest things is that they work for you. You tell them what's up, you talk to them, and you move them. And sometimes you'll find out that they're just immovable, or that they have very strongly held convictions, but also knowing how to get them on the record about that and how to understand where they're coming from so that you can accurately report where they're coming from and know where other decision makers are. And so that whether or not you think that you can move them and that your email, your phone call, your meeting, or whatnot is going to move that one council member, there's still 8 more that you get to talk to and that you now know some of the talking points around. So you can send some emails, you can speak out at public comment. I know that that's been a challenge for our current council on how to hear public comment. And apply enough time to allow people to be heard and whatnot. But showing up, it is your right to say what you have to say and to be able to publicly comment. And whether or not they let you up to the dais to speak, or you're educating everyone else that cares and is there in different ways, then being there and showing up to public comment is important when you can access it. And for a lot of people, Tuesdays at 2 p.m. or whenever those committee meetings are happening isn't necessarily accessible. And those aren't just when the final vote is happening, but also in those committee meetings that lead up to it as well. So when someone writes a bill, whether it's in city council or at the legislature or whatnot, it first has to go through the committee where they're talking about it as like issue experts per se, in the fact that they're focusing in on just the issues that are similar. So whether it's state government or housing or whatnot, they're supposed to be ones that really like know about and care about those issues and are those kinds of experts to decide whether or not it makes it through that first step to the rest of the body, whether that's council or rest of the legislature and whatnot. So there's a couple different opportunities to change it, shift it, speak out about it before it's in front for a final vote. And then I think the other side of that is that when people who are not young people are engaging, making sure that when young people are showing up and they're speaking out and they're sharing their stories and they're being vulnerable and whatnot, taking this time out, that we're validating them and not tokenizing them and whatnot. Like it isn't just something to show up and be like, oh my gosh, you were so brave, thank you, and whatnot, and give them a pat on the back and then not think about it or not do anything afterwards. We're not just here to celebrate young people for speaking up, but to take action on those demands that they showed up for, whether it's internally or externally as a whole, or how you can, whether you're the decision maker that it has the power to like make a vote, or someone who can show up to more things and to ask how I can be more involved and how I can amplify your voice. Young people showing up isn't just like an opportunity to clap for them, a la Nancy Pelosi, but to also stand with them. And I didn't see the clap until I actually said that. Yeah, so however we can, even if like a demand is huge and that endpoint is absolutely worth fighting for, if you can't do that right now, making those like moves to see what you can do right now. And it may be seen as like incrementalism, but as long as, you know, that's a step on the journey versus the final destination, making that impact is important over not doing anything and just leaving dreams to be dreams. Yeah, and so that's kind of like working within a system, and the other part is speaking up and speaking out and whatnot. So when you've given your public comment and you're just getting involved, then joining forces with people that are kind of like already in it is really helpful and important. But also, if you're already in it and you're in those coalition spaces, or you've been working on things, making sure that you're sharing the tools and what you know with people who want to be in it and whatnot. So looking for that movement that's already built so that we can keep building together, as well as looking for different opportunities to spread out the movement, because we need everyone showing up and everyone sharing their stories. And everything so that we can win on rent stabilization. When it comes to those committee meetings and they're in the middle of the day and only landlords are able to the time to not being able to profit as much off of people's labor, then it is much more impactful to have young people talk about like how they're impacted today by their landlords that might be in that very meeting, and how they experience things, because a lot of the times these legislators they've owned for decades. They haven't had to rent or think about renting, if they even ever did, since it has been affordable. And there's only like a handful of legislators out of like 147 that rents, and part of that is the system that's set up where it's not a livable wage, it's a part-time legislature. You're kind of expected to have another job in order to make it work, but then your other job has to be one that will make it work with being a lawmaker and whatnot. So a lot of these people end up being consultants or being landlords or being in those positions where they're so distant, or being independently or familially wealthy and whatnot. And so making sure that they're grounded in the experiences of everyday young people is going to be really important to make that change, to make that those asks, and finding out when and where these decisions are being made and show up. So whether that's in those halls of power or whether it's at some big fundraiser, I really believe that the revolution won't be won without a variety of tactics, even the unpopular ones. Whether you're shutting down streets and making it a little bit inconvenient to people, or showing up at City Hall, like everything is important. Everything is part of how we win, and inconvenience is part of how we win. Like you don't get people to care more without them being forced to care more. But there's also that balance of, is it strategic? And I think that gets confused a lot as well. Whether doing a tactic is going to actually move the people that are, or impact or address the people who are going to be able to make those decisions, or the people who are able to join your cause or join the fight and whatnot. Making sure that it's addressed in the right way to the right people, but in a variety of different ways, if that makes sense. And yeah, so I think the only other, or not only other, but one of the other places I'm thinking about where decisions are made is who's coming in and out of your representative's office. So looking at who's lobbying your city council members. There's actually a website or a link that you can find on like the City Hall website that I'm gonna pull up as soon as I can and am all done. But it is like a logbook of everyone who visits city council offices. Like when you go up to their floor, then you have to like type into a little Google form and whatnot, and it populates into a Google sheet. And so that's how you know like how many people from Uber are talking to certain council members and whatnot. And you can see like who's showing up and who's having these conversations and whatnot. And so that's also important in terms of like figuring out where those decisions are being made. I don't know, I threw a lot of ideas and information and whatnot. What questions do people have? Yeah, no, you can see it without a records request. Yep, thank you, Tanya.
Yes.
It's just sitting out there on the internet. Yep, Jade.
I have a question if no one else does right now.
Oh, hang
For
on. Jade has their
oh,
hand
please
up.
go ahead, Jade.
Thank you for catching that. And I'm struggling to articulate this, so bear with me. But you mentioned it earlier that you believe the revolution will be won by a variety of tactics. I believe that as well. But and then earlier you mentioned, you know, that some of these strategies could be argued as incrementalism. How do you and not well you specifically, yes, but like the youth, how do y'all like combat that? I mean, I appreciate what you said towards the end, like you believe, you know, it's going to be a variety of tactics, so I imagine maybe that's something that you say too, but is there any other kind of like argument or what have you? Because I guess maybe a part two of this question is as well, how are you also like not losing your mind talking to politicians all the time? Because I struggle even litigating a vote, you know, among community when we got a bunch of neoliberals in the house. You know what I'm saying? And because I'm like, you know, and I'm working on it. But unless if I don't have like an actual case and the argument ready to go, and it's like a court situation, I'm fully prepared, or a hearing, like, then yeah, I know what to expect, whatever. But if it's like, you know, I don't know, I feel like I just don't understand how y'all are, in a good way, like how y'all have this kind of energy and are still like, you know, honoring the legitimacy of the electoral process, even though democracy is just like, you know, completely out the door. Because I would love to tap into that energy myself and not be as, you know, I guess jaded as I am when it comes to dealing with politicians, and I respect the strategy. I'm just like, you know, maybe it's just not for me. I don't know, but hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, I think I'm getting what you're putting down and whatnot. And I think one of the things to connect on like incrementalism is where it works and where it doesn't and whatnot. And at the very basis, doing the most good for the most amount of people. So if it means getting a jumpstart tax now that might not have like as big of an amount, but is definitely going to make it through, and then you build off of that, showing how successful and how much it has brought in itself, getting that passed now versus fighting for 5 more years for something higher to even get started. Like, I believe that that's like one of those ways that you build off of something to get it now and then keep working on it towards the future. Whereas when we're talking about like a free school meals program, when it gets whittled down and whatnot and narrowed through the legislative process, for background context on anyone who wasn't following it the last few years, essentially there was a proposal from the Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction to give universal school meals like students were receiving during COVID. And that means you don't have to like go put in your PIN number. You're just like handed lunch, and it's seen as a basic right in schools and whatnot. You don't have to have your parents write a check every week or month or whatnot. And so what we saw happening was, when it hits the House appropriations, they say, oh, that price tag is too much. We need to whittle it down. And that ends up costing more and not doing what we intend to do, because you, when you just give people lunches, then you don't have to spend that staff time having someone taking in the like keypad and whatnot while someone else is serving students. You don't have to have all of the infrastructure and whatnot. And when you keep that gate up, then that costs more than just letting everybody eat and whatnot. So incrementalism doesn't help when it comes to feeding kids on and giving everyone food at school, but it does help when we're building up some of these taxes. And so kind of knowing that, and then not losing our minds with democracy. It's hard. It is really hard knowing how things work and seeing how the game is played and seeing roadblocks come up when you're fighting for community and especially when the answer seems so obvious and whatnot, and to know why the decisions that are being made and feeling like that sense of helplessness, like how can you fight against all this money and all this power and who these people are end up feeling beholden to and whatnot. And I think it's those conversations one-on-one, if you're able to have them, if you're able to get a lobby meeting with your representative as like a constituent, to just connect human to human. Like, this is my experience. This is seconds of public comment, and whatnot. Finding a way to like have that human moment. They aren't necessarily going to be promised to do anything about it, but knowing that they're at least seeing you and hearing you and whatnot, I think goes a really long way towards fighting who they hear from a lot and whatnot. Like, they have lobbyists, like I guess me, in their office a lot. I'm not in their office a lot, but like they have organizational advocates, they have like real lobbyists and whatnot, talking to them a lot about bills and about issues. And it sometimes gets, with folks that do this as their job, a little bit devoid of like, this is my here and now, my right now, what I'm living, and connecting that back to them. Like, this is what's happening in their communities that they're tasked with representing.
Thank you. That was beautiful. And thank you for the perspective there at the end that these professional, well paid or whatever lobbyists are in there too. So that helps me motivate myself, I guess. Anyway, thank you.
I think David had a question or something to say.
I do, if no one else does right now. I'm happy to defer also. It was really similar to what Jade just asked, kind of trying to pull some of your wisdom, Jasmine, around and you and Julissa both around how do you find that sense of balance, in the day-to-day, in the flux, these questions that come up around incrementalism, working in the system, working out of the system. I deal with the same thing every day when I'm going to my nonprofit job and housing first, which is great in all kinds of ways. We're getting people off the street, but also dealing with all the bullshit systems when I walk by 10 people who are dying on the streets on the way to the bus stop. And how, when I just want to say, fuck going into the work today and let's help these people. Or so, yeah, just a little bit more about I guess how you personally approach that. But I think maybe the bus as an organization, how I am curious how you all are going about figuring out your legislative priorities and the things that you're focusing on in this evolving landscape related to the things that Jade was talking about too.
Yeah. So we are involved in a number of different coalitions, and some of our priorities are things that we're hearing from other organizations, whether that's ACRS, other voting justice coalition or voting justice based organizations like Fixed Democracy First, about like what are the issues that are like happening with regards to voting rights, like what's on the table and what needs to be built on. And so that might be like automatic voter registration. And what are the next steps there? Because we got it for people who have enhanced driver's licenses, but we're still working on figuring out those other nexuses, avenues, and whatnot. So some of it is that incrementalism of building on the wins from before, the rights and whatnot. From there, being invested in communities for our colleges and what are the demands of students and community members on free school or sorry, cost-free community college from all the different angles. At the end of the day, we have some core issue areas that we've been working on year over year, and some of them we are hearing like when we're going out and doing voter registration and we're talking to 16 and 17-year-olds that want to pre-register, but they don't have a driver's license, and they want to register online, but the online form doesn't let them register if they don't have a driver's license, and making that more accessible. That was something that we saw a lot during COVID, and when since we're doing class wraps and whatnot, but half their class wasn't able to register because they didn't have that driver's license, or they didn't know off the top of their head what the last four of their social security number was. So they couldn't fill it out in class on the paper form, but wanted to do it when they got home and whatnot, but wouldn't be able to. I see questions about that. So I was just gonna add on. So that's one where we talked to like the Secretary of State's office and another legislator about how we can fix it, looking at what Oregon had done recently, and yeah, so it figured out some language that would work with our laws and improve things that way. We can send out a questionnaire to the folks that are like on our volunteer list and find out like what issues are important to them, what has been coming up. We've got a youth agenda survey that we have folks do after they like sign up to volunteer, and issue-based cards to see like what are young people caring about, what issues are coming up when we're tabling, and compile all that into figuring out where are we going with things. And we also bring in, so with our winter internship that overlaps legislative session, we bring in 4 interns and they tell us what bills they want to follow. So we have the ones that we've kind of been working on throughout the year and whatnot, kind of like in the background, and then they come in and they're like, okay, I see these, but I really care about this bill. I really care about this issue. And we add those to the legislative agenda too. And they take the lead on advocating for that.
I just wanted to take a moment, since there was a pause for a second, to let folks know that we removed Thiago Cross from the room. Somebody DM'd me privately with a link showing that he owns a bunch of RVs that he rents to unhoused people for the exact total of their monthly benefit checks. I don't think that a person like that is safe in a space like this, so they've been removed. And I just wanted to be really explicit in letting people know who's in the room. And if you ever in any meeting feel unsafe, you should always like message the host and let them know.
Wow, yeah, thank you for that, Kate, because man, I'm trying not to cuss because I do have a Choose 180 hat on. But those infiltrators are just, they need to know that they're like the audacity to come into a space where, of advocates for people that they exploit. Like, what are you like, what is your agenda? So thank you for that. And thank you for whoever like sent that private message with that information. And I just wanted to add, like, to the previous conversation, or to like what you said, David, where you shared and asked, I have like this weird, I don't know what it is, but it's like an adrenaline, I think. Like when I see in like when I was this one time when I first started at Choose 180, I was walking on the Ave at UW, and then I see a young person that couldn't be older than 25 and not younger than like 17 or something. And they were just like strung out on drugs. And they were like obviously houseless. And then across the street, couple blocks, there's a multi-million-dollar University of Washington campus with so many young people that have privilege to go there, and like everybody's like, the students are just walking, like ignoring what's going on with the crisis of this young person. And it's like, somebody told me that they couldn't do social work, or that they couldn't be in this kind of work or whatever, because it would break their hearts. And I'm like, well, it breaks my heart to know that this is happening and not doing anything about it. So it's like this adrenaline to like, okay, I need to fix this problem now. Or like, I need to get resources to this person now. Or I like, this just motivates me to like push harder for the things that need to happen in policy and in resources and budget. And I do think that sometimes I do need to check myself in the way that I show up in places with the tenants union, it was different, but I think now I really need to be a lot more diplomatic in the way that I show up in spaces with like politicians and like city council and all that good stuff. But the young people sure don't. So I'm like definitely excited to again like give the tools and the platform for young people to like go out there and and voice their agenda and their priorities. And Jasmine, like it would be so dope to like have coffee, and David too, like, and all of us, like just all go have coffee together, because like I think it's so important, like what you're saying about like surveys. And I'm working on a listening session within Choose 180, and I want to have it like super fun, where like young people can come and like maybe do it in an activity that they, or in a place where they're, because of socioeconomic status or whatever, may not be accessible to them. So anyways, I want to do a fun listening session, not like a boring listening session. And I do want to I do have a big survey, but and it's big because it's like 20 questions, but it's like, but it's easy answers, and I do want to pay them like 20 something bucks for filling out the survey. But a lot of the priorities for Choose 180 are based on a King County survey that they did on young people, on like what would it take for them not to come back to JR. So housing, mental health services, and a loving community. So those are the things that are fueling our priorities at Choose 180 at the intersectional lens, that in order to support young people from not going to JR and to being successful in school, is those three things. And then also like I'm big on cultural relevance and cultural curriculum. So I definitely want to go into the school board and talk to them about how they need to spice their curriculum up with stories and representation of the young people that they teach. Because why didn't I not learn about Mexico in school? Like, hello, like we're right connected to it. Come on. But anyhow, so that's where I'm at with the priorities for Choose 180. And Tanya, I'll pass it to you.
I was just gonna add on some of this note. Um, we're talking a lot about city organizing and education on what's going on, et cetera. And as someone who, at my 48 years old, has been involved in politics for a very long time and activism. One of the things I'm seeing here, and it's something I think, is worth those of us who have lived through it, educating youth about and really trying to also make them aware, is that the changes that happen and that we're seeing in the South and places like Oklahoma and Arkansas and Texas did not happen at the city council level. They actually happen at the school board level. And as someone who lived in Oklahoma for years, I can tell you we saw it happen. If you look back in history, Oklahoma actually used to be all Democrats. They had a Democrat for governor. We had a Democrat in the legislature. The legislature was Democratic. Obviously not anymore if you watch the news. But it starts in reminding people, ourselves, and as young people come up, that you have to pay attention to who's in your school boards, who's talking at the schools, who's showing up, and school policies, because that is where it starts, and it's already starting here, in spaces. Like, I talk to Kate about this all the time, and I get really twitchy, because I'm seeing things that are familiar. So I think that, as we look at educating youth and empowering youth, it's a reminder that it's not just the big picture. It also is what the races and the issues that people don't really talk a lot about, such as school boards or school policies or shutting down of schools, etc. So, that's just a reminder as we start to work and build these things and pass on our knowledge, that a lot of that needs to start there as well.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Absolutely. I mean, when we talk about the school to prison pipeline, like, it starts at schools, right? And then what is going on at the school board? What's going on? My son goes to Garfield, and it's like the PTSA, there was like no Latinos there. And I was like, where are the Latino people at? Like, is there a different one for Latinos? Like, what kind of engagement are we doing for people who don't speak English, for parents who don't understand what's going on at school? Like, and how are we informing people in their languages at school? And then also, one of my main missions at Choose 180 was like to go and sit at school boards, because we do have a school-based diversion program, and like the suspensions and the expulsions and the detentions, and who is getting these suspensions, for how long, and then do they even have a home to go to while they're suspended, and like, do they have parents that are able to stay home when they're suspended, and it's like, why are they being suspended if we have an alternative or diversion program so they don't get suspended, so yeah. Well, let's talk about that, Tanya, because we can go fuck it up at the school board in time. I know this is recording. Don't tell them our infiltrating tactics. I'm kidding.
It's gonna go on our YouTube, but I'll be honest, our views are pretty low in our YouTube workshops. Wow. And I put this in the chat, but I wanted to again plug the Seattle Rancher Organizing Council that B Seattle has like started as a space where people can really come together and like dig into these issues and figure out how we collectively want to organize. So these workshops are like educational, and getting conversations started, but SROC is like designed for us to like plan it out and bring these issues to talk about, like, this is a thing that I think needs attention and support, and figure out how we can like get in there. And we're coming up, we've got elections, we've got a super majority of new council members to deal with going into budget season, which I saw somewhere in the comments, someone was asking about B Seattle's funding. Tanya can go into the details more, but B Seattle is almost entirely funded by the city of Seattle through the Department of Construction and Inspections. That is why at every meeting, we always provide our resource guide that has a link to them, because that is how you file a complaint if there are code violations in your building or if your rights have been violated. And that would go through the Office for Civil Rights. They both go through the Renting in Seattle hotline. So that's something that we bring to every meeting as an educational tool, and that's a huge part of why we're funded. But to be honest, like, I don't know that we'll even exist through this budget cycle because our funding is so reliant upon the city, and this new council seems to be taking a really pro-business stance, and they're not interested in getting progressive revenue in order to fund services like tenant education and organizing, for example, but also like more in depth, they're getting rid of shelter beds and things like that. Like, this is just a really dangerous cycle. No one tell me council that B Seattle is a line item. Yeah, probably not. Or maybe you do, and tell them that that you value it. That's like that these services help you as a renter. If they do, I think they do. But also, like, we're speaking to the young people here. Like, you need to tell the council where you think that your tax dollars should be spent, because they think it should be spent on policing the community and incarceration, and that they think that that is somehow going to give us a more functional and livable city.
I'm going to add on the funding note. We have a lot of individual donors, especially this year, that have stepped up to help us. And we're also we'll be starting this summer, our last year of the Ben and Jerry's organizing grant. And our hope is to be here. We're scrappy. We're doing our best that we can. But we also, Kate and I and all of you and the people that are in our organizing council, etc., are not afraid to speak truth to power and use our voice. We know that we walk a line. We also know that we don't necessarily toe the line of SDCI or other places. We are strictly here to make sure that renters know their rights and help them the best that we can and help organize them. That's our job. That's why we're here. And so that's what the Seattle Renter Organizing Council is, a place for renters to come online or in person. We feed you. And even if you're not a renter yet, but you live in Seattle and you're young, please come. Add your voice to what we're working on, and laying out plans, because it's time. As my grandmother would say, the revolution will not be televised. And so it is time to call our voices together in the ability to be able to grow old and have families in a place that we enjoy living.
So Tanya is less than a decade older than me, but she is definitely like a B Seattle mom. Like, and I there is like an interesting like generational divide between Gen X, where Tanya is, and millennials, where I'm at, and then Gen Z, because I feel like there is so much solidarity between millennials and Gen Z, and part of it is because millennials are not achieving most of the like adult milestones that people would expect for our generation. And so like working in solidarity with younger people is also how we're gonna grow up. Really, like that's where we're at. Sorry, there was a lot happening through this. And also I didn't tell Tanya this. I don't know if anyone saw that the Low Income Housing Alliance, Sharon Lee, who's their executive director, emailed Seattle City Council and asked them to modify the winter eviction moratorium and the school year eviction moratorium. And so the school year eviction moratorium specifically, that is designed for to keep young people housed during the school year so that their education isn't disrupted. And Sharon Lee has kind of doubled down and saying, well, we really only wanted it modified for tenants who have income and are choosing not to pay their rent. Like, anyone does that. It's certainly not the norm, and to modify the law and enacting acting like that's a reality is wild. Anyway, so as Tanya was saying, like, we speak truth to power. I did tell a reporter today that I thought it was capitalist bullshit that their website says that they advocate for just housing policies, and here they are sending an email because they're having trouble getting funding. Like, that is like textbook capitalist bullshit. And I just think it's important for people to know about those things. And I also feel like I've been talking for a long time, and I would like to segue it into somebody else to say something. So somebody raise their hand.
I've talked a lot too, so I'm gonna not talk until somebody who hasn't talked. So, but yeah.
Jade, yes, please.
All right, I have another question. And this, I realize we're close to time, so like, I don't want to, this might prompt a larger conversation. However, I've been struggling, and I thought we were going to talk more about it, but the social housing initiative, okay, I'm like super down for it. One part of my brain is, okay, but the other part, I'm struggling because I understand the strategy with it, but like, for me, as someone who, if I were to attempt to go out and canvas and do the pitch, it would be very much easier, okay, for someone like me, on a human level, to just be like, yeah, we're taxing the rich, okay, to make this happen. And I recognize, though, how that language is, a red flag to NIMBY's XYZ. But it's deeply concerning to me because we see how the oppressors consistently manipulate words and these policies to hide in, their agenda to oppress us. And that's where, like, my brain or heart or whatever that is within me, that's like, ooh, I don't feel good about that. Even though these are whatever, they're words I won't say right now, they're NIMBYs or what have you that we're trying to appeal to, they are still a part of the working class. So that's where I struggle with, the idea of selling something that is, I don't know. Am I making sense here? Sorry. Okay. and if y'all don't have answers in this moment, that's totally cool, because yeah.
Can I talk about the initiative, like, really quick before, David, you talk more about so it's really only calling for tax on, like, businesses who, like, have employees whose compensation packages are above $1 million a year. So, like, I don't know where you draw the line at working class. At this point, I honestly, like, don't know even like, I remember when, like, $100,000 sounded like, it still sounds like so much money, to be honest. Like, I don't earn that much, but, like, I thought that, like, if you earn that much money a year, you would be set. And now, like, with the change of costs, like, it's not the same. But also, like, $1 million is not how most people, like, it's not what most people earn per year. This isn't going to impact most of them. I'm really focusing on, like, this is about people who are bringing home $1 million a year, and that's, like, at the baseline. And that's it. Like, I think that even most, like, well-off people, like, aren't quite in that bracket where they could envision themselves in that. Okay, go ahead, David.
Rachel, did you have a question to add with your hand up? I just wanted to make sure I wasn't jumping in line. I love the question, Jed. I'm not sure I'm 100% clear on what you're asking, but the basic question around some of the class dynamics with social housing, how we are defining working class exactly, how we are, and how we're defining class lines as just importantly renter versus owner as worker versus owner, which is sort of an important shift, and that they do increasingly go together. That's personally why I'm excited about it so much as someone who thinks that we do need more kind of militant class lines drawn in all of our advocacy, and especially around housing. And so I see them really taking the leadership on that, and that's why it's been so resonant just in collecting signatures. I collected for the first round last year, and that was actually a lot harder. This one's been a lot easier to collect signatures for, because this one's like, do you want to tax the rich for housing? And people are like, sign me up. And I don't think we're actually going to have a hard time meeting the threshold, but we got to get enough here, and we're coming up to the deadline. So I'm hoping, I actually had it pulled up that we could send it out, or somebody will be putting it up. But yeah, I mean that, and it's just a step, and so much is going to depend on the makeup of the new council around implementation. This fight has barely begun, but I just see it as one small but important and potentially transformational step, along with a lot of other things. Also have a lot of questions on the implementation side of it. So, but happy to talk more about it.
I just wanted to say I don't really have any questions or anything like that. In particular, I just want to say thank you to all the speakers, and because you guys are doing important work and letting people know, letting especially the younger generations know that they actually have power. They actually have the ability to speak up for their rights in a way that older generations definitely did not know how. So it's just about like expanding. And I just want to just hop in and say thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for that, because that also gives us a really natural point to transition to our close. And also follow all of us on social media. I know Jasmine said that she was just about to start up the first of all, if you don't follow Jasmine on Twitter, you should, she's delightful. But she said she's starting up the bus briefs, where she kind of gives briefs on legislation. And I went to one last night and learned about the CCA, and it was extremely digestible. And so I think if you have no idea what's going on, that's a great place to start. Also, they weren't able to join us tonight. I know that the Seattle Youth Commission is recruiting. Julissa and I are both on the Renters Commission, and it's been extremely disempowering. So I can't actively advocate for it right now. But we are hoping to change that. We are working to get that changed, and as we do, we will be begging all of you to join the Renters Commission. But in the meantime, go join the Youth Commission, because maybe they'll have more power. And with that, Tanya, could you share the screen, please?
Wait, what if we don't have Twitter and I want to get on Jasmine's game? Do you have an IG?
Yes, I have an IG. I'll drop that. You can also sign up on the Washington buses volunteer list, and I send out emails to our volunteers with everything that's going on as well.
Oh, thank you.
And so with this, we'd like to have an action that our attendees can take right in the moment. And this is kind of an important one. And so the King County Council is considering a dangerous motion that would threaten renters' rights. It's motion 2024-0145, and it was introduced by Councilmember Reagan Dunn. It would limit access to legal aid for renters facing eviction. Clearly, like, this is a problem. It would lead to increased eviction rates, worsening the housing crisis. It was driven by landlord lobbyists and right-wing media propagandists. You might have seen like the Landlord Lives Matter protests that happened outside of a tenant's house in Bellevue. And it's just perpetuating these harmful stereotypes about renters and really ignoring our community's real needs. Renters need strong protections and anti-harassment laws to shield them from abusive landlords, not measures that strip away their rights and support. So we're asking you to just take a moment. We have a form email and you can modify it to tell your own story or to talk about how this would impact your community, but just urge the council to reject this motion and prioritize renter protections. And I just want to like talk about how this all kind of ties together too. So this is in King County. This motion is not an ordinance, so it wouldn't necessarily pass any laws that would restrict this. But it would do is put the foundation in place that they could start changing the laws. And it would also change the like public opinion on the importance of legal aid and other tenant services. And then when we have inexperienced pro-business council members like here in Seattle would look to like the more conservative areas to see what they're doing, and this could put Seattle's tenant protections at risk and our tenant services budget, which again is where Be Seattle is founded. But like Seattle's tenant protections, like for right to counsel, currently, if you are facing eviction and you can't afford a lawyer in Seattle, you have a right to have a lawyer. And outside of Seattle, you have a right if you can prove that you can't afford a lawyer. And they have like pretty strict guidelines that are like, if you are receiving some kind of support like food stamps, or if you earn less than, I think it's twice the federal minimum wage, or sorry, minimum income for the poverty level, which I think is like under, off the top of my head, it's been a while since I looked this up, but I looked it up when I created the Action Network thing. It's around like $36,000 a year for an individual. So that would put like a lot of like older people who are on Social Security, like they would just earn just above it. People who are like lower income workers would also be just above it if they're working full time. But we know with the massive housing crisis that you can be working full time and not able to afford the rent. So if you have like one issue, you could end up in eviction court. And eviction court is not like a get out of eviction free card. It's just ensuring that you have adequate representation that would work for you to try to find how you can legally stay in your home. And asking to limit that is just putting all of the power into the hands of the people who already have all of the power, who already control your home. So please take a moment to send an email. And with that, it's 7:59. I think the only time we've ever been this close to, oh yeah, sorry. Go back to that, Tanya. I forgot, I just stuck this in at the last minute. There's a paid internship at King County Elections trying to educate students and future voters across South King County. So if you or a young person are interested in that, I don't know, I thought it seemed cool. And so I decided to share it. And with that, thank you all so much for coming, and thank you so much to our speakers, Jasmine, Julissa, and David. You're incredible. I really appreciate you, and I appreciate everyone. Have a great night.
Great time. Thanks all. Thank you, Kate.
Have a good night. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.